Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome in. The On Texas Football live stream is live, and we're talking Texas football for the next hour plus, taking your questions and comments and conversation. The college football playoff rankings, installment 3 are out from the committee. Longhorns are still at number 3. They're number 2 in the projected rankings as far as the bracket goes. But if they lose a game here between now and the end of the year, they might be out altogether. We'll talk about that over the course of the next hour. And have a good conversations about it. Also look forward to Kentucky, as Steve Sarkisian has called it, the most important game of the year, trying to get ahead of that trap game conversation with Senior Day. And A&M looming is one of the biggest games in, the history of that rivalry coming up a week from Saturday. So a lot to dive into, guys. We got Quinn Ewers conversation in offense, number 1 defense in the country. How are we doing there, Rod Babers?
Doing good. I feel good about, obviously where the Longhorns are, controlling their own fate down the stretch here. I know there are a lot of questions and concerns for Longhorn fans about Quinn Ewers' performance and the inconsistency that they've seen from Quinn here down the stretch. But I'm with you. I think the defense is, to me, has set itself up to be the identity of this team because they have been the most consistent element of the team. So honestly, I've been praising the defense all week, and going into the game against Kentucky, offensively, they've been struggling this season. So I feel good once again that the Texas defense, they'll be stingy, and it'll be tough to move the ball on that Texas defense, no matter what we see on the side of for the Texas offense. I'm hoping that we see something similar to what we saw versus Florida, or we see Texas start to round into form offensively. But even if they don't necessarily round into form, the defense, I think we can all agree, it's gotten better. I feel like every week. That's one element of the team that's gotten better every week. And I feel like if that is the case, Texas is in a position to beat anybody in the country on any given Saturday. And it's because of the defense, though, not necessarily because of the offense.
Well, and Sark even said that, CJ, you were there for the press conference after the Arkansas game, that they're kind of leaning into that identity, that they're really good on that side of the ball. There were 3 common conversations through the offseason on this live stream and on Texas football and radio shows. The schedule was manageable, and it's turned out to be actually more manageable than we could have imagined. The defense we thought would take a dramatic step forward with the solidified secondary and the additions they made and just the continuity on that side of the ball year 4. And then the spotlight was going to be totally on Quinn Ewers. I mean, he was going to be the most spotlighted player in the country with more pressure than anybody in the country. And we're watching that happen. And as Rod pointed out on one of these Tuesday live streams, once C.J. Baxter got hurt, CJ, the offense was going to be built around him. They were going to go to more of a passing game. And you got to kind of ride the elevator of Quinn Ewers, the up and down Quinn Ewers. When it's good, it's good. When it's not great, it looks pretty messy. But that defense can pick you up. I mean, you cover it, in game to game. It's good enough to win, but it's also bad enough to get you beat if you're not careful.
Yeah, and that's kind of going to be, the end-all, be-all for the Longhorns this year. They're going to go as Quinn Ewers goes. And then Quinn Ewers is going to be the reason that Texas goes all the way to the championship game and wins it, or they're going to be the reason why maybe you lose at Texas A&M, you don't make it to where you want to go, right? I think that's ultimately what it's going to be because we know what the defense is. And to Rod's point, defense is really good. And if you're going to ride the defense, you're going to expect to see 20 points or less on the board because that's kind of been the MO of this Texas defense the entire year. Question is, can you score enough to give that defense enough of a buffer? And right now, if you're continuing to go 3 and out 4 times in a game, I would argue you're not in a position to go very far when you start playing the Ole Misses, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, whoever else that you might face in the college football playoff. But, of course, Texas sits in a good spot right now, right? Number 3 in the college football playoff rankings. They're the number 2 seed. They have Kentucky this week, and then they go on the road to Texas A&M, in which, hey, you control your own destiny, and everything else outside of resumes and college football playoff critiques and comparing teams to one another. It doesn't matter if you're Texas, if you go out there and you win the next 2 ball games, because that gets you into the dance, it gets you into the SEC championship game, and that's all that matters, right? All that matters is winning football games. It doesn't matter how that happens. So for the next 2 weeks, of course, we can sit here and debate resumes. We can sit here and debate strength of schedules. But for Texas, the only thing that matters is you win against Kentucky this weekend, you win against Texas A&M 2 weekends from now, and you go to Atlanta and you play for a first-round bye in the SEC title in year 1 in the conference.
Yeah, Rod, and that's as a player all you can ask for, right? I mean, the public opinion polls and conversation can be your schedule's not very strong, your quarterback is up and down, but in that locker room, you got to know that you control your destiny. You don't need anybody's help, and that's kind of where you want to be as a competitor.
That's all you can ask for at this point in the season. That if you right, just win and survive in advance. You're getting to that point in the season, getting to the big tournament. So I'm excited the Longhorns have put themselves in a position where, I mean, it's all in front of them. I just think it looks different than we all thought. And for some Longhorn fans, that's uncomfortable. Because I think we all thought they'd be led by the offense. The offense would be explosive and elite. And the offense is good. It's not like you have a bad offense or anything. It's just inconsistent. And I do think at this point in the season, you are still searching for an offensive identity, and that's probably not good. Like, you know, in the offensive identity was, hey, we just run it through Quinn. But when Quinn's inconsistent, hard to find that offensive identity you can lean on, right? That you can hang your hat on. But that's why I give Sark a ton of credit, because I feel like game to game, the offensive identity kind of shifts and changes, and it's malleable this year, kind of based on what the defense is giving them. And the running game feels like that too, that Sark's feeling it out and troubleshooting most of the game. And then when he finds what works, that's, you know, he kind of makes sure he's kind of gratuitous and stubborn about that concept. And every game, and I'll give credit for the diversity of the running game for Texas, feels like most games something different ends up popping for him. Like in the last game, it was that buck sweep that ended up popping. That was that Jaden Blue got his big one, and a lot of your rushing yards came off that buck sweep where you pull the front side guard, pull the backside guard. And, you know, in this Oklahoma game, it was a split wide zone, popped it, split wide zone, start figuring it out and tinkering with things. And I feel like that's a microcosm for the offense, in the sense that, well, if Quinn's off this game, we got to figure out something else. Or if they're taking away the deep ball, we got to figure out something else. And so game to game, it's trying to change. And I think for Longhorn fans, that's made them uncomfortable. But for me, I have kind of flipped now that we have such a large sample size. I expect the inconsistency out of the offense. I expect Sark to adjust as a chess master on the fly to figure it out. That's why you're paid the big bucks. But what he can rely on is the defense. That's why when they've asked him, hey, you know, are you comfortable with being led by a defensive, you know, identity for this football team, even though he's an offensive guy, and Texas has the best quarterback room in the country, one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, and one of the best O-lines in the country. And you think, well, they got to be one of the best offenses in the country. Like, yeah, they kind of are at times. Depends on what game and depends on who they're playing. But the defense is lights out. It's money every week, and every week they get better. And it ain't just one or two dudes. It's like 7, 8 dudes, and these dudes are dogs. Like, they play a ferocious style of defense. There ain't no. Every now and then you see open, and it starts right when you see an open wide receiver, you're like shocked, like he was open. Wow, hey, you know, you don't see it that often in that Texas secondary. Last year, guys was running free wide open all the time. You don't see it in this secondary. You don't see a lot of space. So this defense is stingy. So I think Sark now understands I have to coach honestly according to the D, and that is different. And he admitted that doesn't make me more aggressive. Some people are like, well, if you got a good defense, that makes you more aggressive, right? Because you can count on your defense to keep them off the scoreboard. Not necessarily. Sark said, actually, you know, now he thinks about more of the complementary football element. If I got a good defense, can't turn the football over, can't put them in compromising positions. So I would not doubt if the offense changed a little bit now that he knows, I can count on that defense. Because after the Arkansas game, that was one of the best offenses you faced. You have had a very favorable schedule in the sense that you haven't faced prolific passing offenses, but Arkansas was an offense, top 5 explosive offense in the country, had best dual threat quarterback you faced, best wide receiver you faced. Texas still went out there and slapped them around. Yeah. And made them look pedestrian. They make every offense look pedestrian. Yeah, I can't wait till they play a better one in the playoffs.
Number 1 in the country in defensive efficiency, meaning, you know, points per drive. I mean, 9 out of 10 times they get the team off the field with no points allowed. I mean, that's ridiculous. And you can hear it, Rod, that, you know, the defensive competitors are like they're playing for history now. They're playing like they're buying in. They want shutouts. They want a skunk a team. And we saw it, and we were doing it on the in-game watch here on the On Texas Football Channel. For whatever reason, CJ, you were there in Arkansas, but Manny Muhammad went off the field for a couple plays. Bobby Petrino went right after Kobe Black. Like, oh man, we got a chance now. Let's see if we can get something. And they hit a 25-yarder and an 8-yarder, and that led to their only touchdown drive. And it's like, well, why was Manny off? Either way, when Manny's on the field with Jade and that secondary and the pass rush, teams just kind of get smothered. I mean, that's elite level defense. We saw Michigan win a championship a year ago with a great defense, and they had a strong running game. And Georgia, I mean, that's they're kind of playing to that level right now as far as that defensive EPI.
Yeah, what's encouraging on that sense is, hey, Kobe Black wasn't in bad position on either of those passes, and I think that's a little bit more of just the youth going against one of the country's best wide receivers, and Andrew Armstrong is late hands. I mean, we talked about it last year with some of the Texas cornerbacks. Late hands are tough to defend against, especially against a veteran wide receiver, and that's what got the best of Kobe this past Saturday. But, Aaron, to your point, I mean, you take one of Jade Barron, you take one of Manny Muhammad off the field, and all of a sudden offensive coordinators look around saying, okay, we have our opportunity. We have our window to get big chunk yardages. Because with them on the field, you don't have that luxury of saying, okay, we can test one of these cornerbacks. Because more times than not what's going to happen. Arkansas threw the ball deep, or at least tried to early in the game. And because the windows were so tight, balls had to come in a little bit, hot. That pass from Taylor Green, a couple of them were dropped. A couple of them, because of the windows being so tight, the ball had to have a little extra juice on them. They weren't caught. The one that got hands on them, Texas ended up batting it up in the air and coming away with an interception because that window closed so quickly. And so I think that's one of the things is, you'd love to get all these guys reps. You never know when an injury might occur. But right now, moving forward, opposing coordinators know that their window to move the ball and do so in chunk yardages is going to come when 5 or 7 are not on the field. And that's going to be something that I think you see a little bit less of, especially against Texas A&M. You're going to be playing your best guys 95% of the snaps if you can.
I would go they went at Gilbo a little bit too. They put Andrew Armstrong in the slot. I didn't look at how many slot reps he had. They put him in the slot a couple of times, and then they got him once on that slant. Think about this. This is how good Manny Muhammad's been. Jade Barron is widely considered to be playing at the highest level of any cornerback in the country. Power forwards like him and Travis Hunter, people like that. They're playing at some of the highest levels for any cornerback in the country. And yet they chose to throw at Jade more than they threw at Manny Muhammad. Maybe when they watch film, they're like, yeah, we'd rather throw it. We got a better shot over there with Jade than we do with this Muhammad kid. That's pretty wild when you think about it. That's pretty wild. That's how good Manny Muhammad's playing right now.
Well, and on your point there, Rod, the interception that Jade got, he was covering another guy, and they tried to go slot to Gilbo, and he came off of his guy and made the athletic play. I mean, they're communicating at such a high level. We'll talk more about that defense coming up. We'll talk about the Longhorns at number 3 in tonight's college football committee rankings that are out and what it means. But I did want to wrap up the Tuesday night conversation about Quinn Ewers, and we'll certainly take your super chats and talks about quarterbacks because the offense will go as Quinn goes, and there's an elevator you got to ride with him. It feels like right now. I will say this, Sark did say at the post game, CJ and Fayetteville, and you were there, that they had to go change the game plan at halftime of what they thought they were going to be running, and they kind of had worked on in the week. And Rod talked about the run game changes they made for Arkansas once they saw the 3-high defense. You can do that with a third-year starting quarterback and a veteran offensive line where you can kind of flip on the fly. Guys, we worked on this all week. We got to go to this. We got to change some things here. You can't do that with a young quarterback, and you certainly with an inexperienced offensive line. That's a luxury Sark has, that you can kind of change things up. They even against Georgia, as bad as the first half was, they made those changes and got back to within 8 points in the second half before Georgia stretched it out. I mean, that's a luxury for the fans that want to know why Quinn and, to have a 30 game starting quarterback and an offensive line that can change like that and be malleable within a game, that really helps. And it helped them get control of that Arkansas game and not let it get out of control.
Yeah, of course, the big takeaway, again, it wasn't pretty in the first half. And again, it goes to the ruts that Texas offensively has had this season. Almost a coin flip in what you're going to see with the Texas offense when it comes to an offensive possession per game. Throw all that aside. When Texas needed a touchdown, they stormed down the field 75 yards, 7 plays, touchdown. When Texas needed a run out of 7-minute clock, they ran out of 7-minute clock, converted on 4th down, and did so in a very gritty fashion, right? We don't see Quinn Ewers pull the ball, put his head down, and try to make or fall forward for extra yards. You just don't see that. But with the game on the line in that instance, that's exactly what was happening. And I kind of put a bow on my recap of this game right? And I think because Ole Miss walked into Fayetteville and they just blew the doors off of that defense, I think, and myself included, the expectation was that Texas was going to do the same. And it's funny, right? For folks that, follow trends or you follow betting, whatever, when you think something's going to happen, odds are it never happens. And with Texas coming off of its best passing performance of the season against Florida, Arkansas just coming off of its worst passing defensive game against Ole Miss, it made sense for the two teams to play one another kind of going in different directions, right? Texas going up in the passing game, Arkansas going very much in the wrong direction. Well, when you sit back and reflect and say, oh, well, Arkansas had 2 weeks to perfect this secondary. They had 2 weeks to get that game plan ready, right? That 3-3-3, 3 high look stack that they were playing with the 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and 3 safeties. I didn't see an open wide receiver outside of the pump and go. And that's what that play is designed to do. There were no busting coverage. You watch the Ole Miss game, what did you see? You saw guys running wide open the entire day. And then this led me back to some of the games previously in Arkansas's schedule, right? You play Tennessee. You win that game. Nico throws for a 158, no touchdowns. Sounds like a pretty good secondary, right? Marcel Reed, not known to be a passer, but 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sounds about right on par, right? That's a neutral site game. They held that offense in check. And Garrett Nussmeier, they throw the ball more than anybody in the country at LSU. They did so against Arkansas as well. 233 passing yards. Yeah, they scored a lot of points, but none of them came through the air. 0 passing touchdowns. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me Ole Miss, that game, that was an outlier. You can look at Mississippi State and say, yeah, they threw for 300 yards. They had 25 points on the board. They were down by 25 the entire game. That was a blowout. Of course they were going to throw the football. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is it wasn't pretty. But I think at the end of the day, you have to look back at Arkansas for its entirety of, its schedule of work, this body of work so far this year, and say, outside of Ole Miss, where can you point at and say that they've been a very terrible pass defense? I don't think you can. And I think right now that's kind of been my silver lining, if there is one for Quinn and this Texas offense, is it wasn't pretty, but hey, emotional rivalry game on the road in the SEC against a team that, when given an extra week to prepare, you knew they weren't going to be that bad. So that's, again, I think it was short-sighted in my pregame kind of participation for this game, is saying, yeah, Texas, they got that offense rolling. They're throwing the ball deep again. It's working. And hey, look, Arkansas, they just got destroyed with the deep ball. It makes for a perfect pairing. But holistically speaking, that hadn't been the part for the Arkansas defense this whole season. And say what you want about the frustration. I get it. I was as frustrated as anybody watching 4 3-and-outs all Saturday with 5 punts in the first half. Yeah, that's frustrating. Texas has to run the football better against the 3 high look. That's without a doubt. Quinn has to be better evading sacks. But more than anything, I think moving forward, you give teams 2 weeks to prepare against Texas. The book's going to be out regardless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the way you said that. It wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, right? It wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, Rod, on the road. And those are great numbers. Again, the Vegas line was 12, right? Once Taylor Green was cleared to play. And, they won by 10, and Sark could have kicked a field goal late and win by 13. It's one of those. Vegas was pretty spot on, and the power ratings were pretty good. And Texas takes that double digits on the road any day of the week, as ugly as it was in the first half, and the ability to shift. I want to play one thing here, because the debate about Quinn, Rod, you played at Texas during the quarterback controversy, right, where there was an absolute controversy between Applewhite and Sims, and you were a part of it. But listen to Michael Taff here. There's no locker room controversy of who the quarterback is. I mean, that's the one thing. Sark's been completely locked in on Quinn. This is his team. Listen to Michael Taff talking about Quinn, their relationship, and within that locker room, there is no doubt who their quarterback is.
At the end of the game Saturday, you and Quinn shared a moment where, you gave him the cowboy hat and you were insistent on him wearing it. And, like you said, as high of a standard that Texas fans or the Texas program holds its players every single game, encouragement is key. And what did you say to Quinn at the end of the game right there in that moment? And what is maybe that encouragement? What does that maybe mean to him?
Yeah, well, I think it's cool that we get to wear our Silver Spur hat every game after those wins, seeing the eyes of Texas, because it shows, how much this university means to us, wearing that Silver Spurs hat. Me and Quinn both are Spurs, and so we don't get to run out with Bevo because we're focused on other things on Saturdays. But just to share that bond that we have. But just telling them like, hey, this is your team, and we're going to go where you're going. I'm so proud of you. You know, that third down had never gotten me more hyped on the sideline than that play right there. I was shoving people left and right, and so just encouraging him that this is your team. You know, we go where you go. We're going to follow you, and we're so proud of you. And just keep leading us, keep taking us in the right direction.
Rod, speak to that, because you lived a quarterback controversy. It's only a controversy if it's divided a locker room, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think ultimately y'all give Sark credit for the way that Sark has handled it after the Georgia game where he temporarily sat Quinn on the sidelines a little bit and had him watch to reset and then put Quinn back in the game. He did not waver after that. And I think that was important, that no, he's our guy. Quinn's our guy. And even the story was, no, I put him in just to reset him. It was always the plan to put him back in. Even though it may not have been the plan all the time to put him back in. Who knows if Arch goes down and scores a touchdown, who knows how that goes. So I think it's all about the way the coach handled it. Mac Brown's amazing, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame human being. But I do think we all agree that there were some mistakes made in the way that Mac handled the Sims Applewhite controversy, snip, snap, going back and forth between the two. If the coach can't make up his mind, how the hell are you supposed to expect the team in the locker room to make up its mind? So.
Yeah, he's been adamant about it for all the way through. And again, whether Longhorn fans like that or not, or are on Texas viewers, you're going to go as Quinn goes. I mean, the CJ Baxter injury kind of changed what the offensive identity was going to be. I believe that. And you're going to ride the wave of Quinn Ewers. And I think Sark's going to run with it for sure. Hey, want to tell you, but then we'll get into the college football playoff rankings and our thoughts on it. But new partner with us on a Tuesday night on the On Texas Football live stream, DG Construction. DG Construction. Look at that, 10 years of excellence. These guys are great. I mean, if you are looking for a transforming your outdoor space and creating a hardscape and a perfect palace for your backyard, look at those pictures right there. Those are tremendous. You're looking at San Antonio's premier hardscape and exterior living space contractor. 10 years of amazing work delivering top-notch craftsmanship. The guys at DG Construction are experts at creating stunning driveways and patios and walkways, lawn improvements, either in concrete, vivid pavers. You can see those, again, pictures right there. Luxurious artificial turf, sturdy house slabs. This is across the board. Just they're a call away. Mark Valdez, their dedicated design consultant, longtime subscriber of the On Texas Football channel. He'll help you and get you good going with a free consultation in San Antonio and north of there. 210-400-5643, 210-400-5643. Don't wait to make your outdoor dreams a reality. Do it this winter, and it'll be rated for the spring, and then you can enjoy it year-round in Austin, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas. DG Construction. Give them a call online at dgsatx.com. That's DGSAT. So essentially DG San Antonio, Texas. So dgsatx.com. Hook them and the folks from DG Construction, where the outdoor dreams meet exceptional design. And you can find them right there. Those pictures look incredible. Thank you to Mark and the team for being a part of this. We appreciate them jumping on board. We'll tell you about more of our partners here, guys. But the Longhorns at number 3 in the rankings tonight, guys. No surprise there. But it was debated between Reese Davis and the guys that I thought it was Greg McElroy that made the point that the Longhorns are in a really good place. But if they lose, if they don't get the A&M win, they got to beat Kentucky, obviously, as a 21-point favorite. Sark has called it the most important game of the year. But if they lose to A&M, they're going to be in a pretty vulnerable spot because they'll be a 2-loss team at 10-2, and they don't have a ranked win. And, there's going to be debates about that. They may still get in, but, boy, you don't want to leave yourself into that beauty pageant, CJ, with no ranked wins and 10 W's, but not playing in the SEC championship game. The two teams that play for the championship are certainly getting in. You heard Ward Manuel, the AD from Michigan, talking about they're not going to punish a team that gets to their conference championship game and takes a loss. We're not going to punish that team. We're going to reward that team. And then you're looking at beyond that. Most people don't think the SEC will get more than 4. If Texas doesn't make the SEC championship game, you'll be looking at Ole Miss and either Georgia or Alabama, maybe ahead of Texas. Certainly Georgia beat Texas. Ole Miss has got some ranked wins that Texas doesn't have. Safe to say Longhorns in a good place, but they have to win their next 2 games and then leave no doubt.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? Texas controls its destiny. And if you're a Texas fan wanting to play the hypothetical game, hey, the hypothetical is you win out, You don't have to deal with all this outside noise, right? That's the beauty of it. And for Texas, you get to take care of Kentucky at home. It's a 21-point game spread for a reason, right? That's the expectation is Texas to win that game. Put all eyes ahead to Texas A&M, and credit to Steve Sarkisian for making this feel like and emphasized as the most important game of the Texas schedule, because it's easy to look at Kentucky, their schedule and body of work so far this year, and say, yeah, this is a game Texas should steamroll. Fortunately, and this is kind of where Sarkisian maturing as a head coach has kind of been shown this year, coming out saying this is the biggest game of the year. What did we hear out of College Station is, we're looking forward to Texas. Auburn. We don't know who we play this week, right? That was kind of the message that we heard from Mike Elko earlier today. But the message is this. You went out, you're in. You need to treat Texas A&M on November 30th like it's a playoff game, because quite frankly, it is a playoff game for Texas. If you lose that game, you don't have the resume. You don't stack up with the wins of an Ole Miss, a Georgia, an Alabama, a Tennessee. That's just the point. You need to win out. You need to treat Texas A&M like it is the first round of the playoffs, and then you get to go to the SEC championship game if you win and potentially reward yourself with a bye. Aside from that, the hypotheticals are just that, hypotheticals. But right now, take care of business this weekend against Kentucky, and then it's all steam ahead. Don't leave any stones unturned. Pull out all the tricks in your bag of Steve Sarkisian, because you got to win that game in College Station on November 30th, in my eyes.
Yeah, and get that ranked win. It would solidify everything. Sark would clinch it a trip to the SEC championship game, and at that point, if you win the SEC, then you're in. If you don't win that game, you'll still be in, and an opportunity probably to host a home game the following week. Here's Daniel with a super chat. With all the hype of our ranking, where do you guys think we should be ranked in the SEC based on our quality of wins? Are there teams that be ranked higher than Texas in the SEC? Great question, Daniel. I mean, that's, I have a hard time. I lived the first 8 years of my life in Big Ten country. So I grew up around that whole Midwest scene, but there's no part of me that believes the 4 or the 5 best teams in the country are in the Big Ten right now. There's not one part of me that believes that. Yet the committee for 2 weeks in a row has put 4 of the 5 best teams in the country in the Big Ten. They're ranking, schedule and number of wins and wins, losses over quality of wins and schedule. Yep. Because you look at, the Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, those are 4 of the top 5 teams. Texas is in there, obviously. But then at the back end, you got, Alabama and Georgia and Ole Miss and the SEC. Tennessee's just outside. I don't believe the Big Ten has Indiana, guys, has played the exact bottom of the Big Ten. I mean, it's an 18-team conference, and they've played like the 9 worst teams in Illinois, or 8 worst. I mean, essentially, they get their chance against Ohio State, but they've beaten the bottom of the conference, and that leads to a debate about should they, if you're going to win 18 teams, or 16, should you have, conference, East and West and all that? Because, Penn State, it's not their fault. It's like Texas. They just play the schedule they were delivered. But, boy, there aren't any quality wins on there, nor for Penn State.
Man, it's a log jam everywhere, right? We talk about it in the SEC. There's 5 teams fighting for essentially 4 spots. But you start looking at, and this is, again, going back to the argument with Indiana and Texas, is when you play bad teams, you're expected to blow them out. Every single one of Texas's wins this year has been by 10 points or more, except for the Vanderbilt win on the road in which they won by 3, but a personal foul, roughing the passer penalty negated what could have been a 17-point victory. So that's the argument there. Who knows what happens with Indiana and Ohio State this weekend, right? It's a 12-point spread. If Indiana pulls off the upset, what does that mean for Ohio State? Are they now out of the picture? Because your losses are going to be to Oregon, a number 1 team, and Indiana, who's going to be a top 4 team, I would assume, if they end up winning that game. That's going to be just as comparable to any of the 2-loss schedules in the SEC. So it gets muddier, it gets messier. Again, fortunately for Texas, they control their own destiny. It's interesting. You could argue Texas's strength of schedule certainly isn't great. And that might be Oklahoma's biggest achievement this whole year, being so bad that their win against the Sooners in Dallas can't be used in their advantage. Congrats, Oklahoma. You accomplished something this year by being as poor as you were on the field, by keeping your biggest rival out of potentially the college football playoff. That's a silver lining if you're a Sooner fan. But again, all of these hypotheticals, they're fun to debate, because I could sit here and pick apart every single roster and every single schedule and matchup and say, well, you know what, they only beat Kentucky by 1. I don't know. But for Texas, the only thing that matters is winning these next 2 games.
Yeah, this is why, whether y'all like it or not, the expansion of the playoffs is coming in the near future. You know they are, because that's the whole point of this. Is going to be controversial enough where they'll make the argument to expand it to 16 in like 5 years or whatever the contract is up. They'll expand it. There ain't no doubt in my mind. Because of the reasons that CJ just mentioned.
Would 16 be?
I
mean, it feels like that.
Would they go? So if they go 16, would they go more buys, or what would you think they would do?
Yeah, I don't know about the structure of it, but I'm just telling, because the ratings are gonna. I think we all agree the ratings are gonna be through the roof. I mean, they'll be monster ratings for these games, and the controversy from who's gonna get left out, as you just kind of mentioned, CJ, you're about to leave out some deserving teams. Especially if you end up putting in a team like Texas without the resume, who's got the same, win-loss record as some of those other teams with better quality wins. So the argument is going to be made. So I just think ultimately, whether you like it or not, I'm not saying I advocate for it, but it'll expand in a few years to 60.
Well, ESPN will want it. You said it, right?
Yeah,
the network will want it. It's not that much of a change. You've already dramatically changed what you're doing to the structure. And the NFL has 14 teams that make the playoffs.
They'll do it. Whatever they might go to 14. They might just go 14. Whatever it is, they'll do it though.
That makes some sense, but we'll see. And those are the debates that are gonna be fun. But as you said, I mean, the fun part is Texas and Texas A&M control their destiny, and then they'll leave it in the hands of the college football gods. If they don't win that game, they'll lose that game is going to be teetering all the way to Sunday. Indiana, I mean, Rod, as a competitor, that's all you want. You can go win. If you win your games, you'll be in. Ohio State controls where they want to be, and that's really what you want. To see these teams on the field. Gosh, we talk about regular season taking on more import. Gosh, Army and Notre Dame becomes a huge game on Saturday. Colorado playing Kansas. Colorado and Kansas, where Kansas is beating back-to-back ranked teams and upset Iowa State and gave them their first loss. Turned around. Won again last week and took BYU out, and now they've got Colorado and coming to Lawrence. I mean, they could really upset the Big 12 apple cart. But the interesting thing about that graphic that Matthew put up, look where with BYU losing and tumbling 8 spots, guys, 8 spots out. So that tells you take a loss. You've been kind of riding that margin. You lose, you're going way down. You're going all the way to 14. But look who's number 4 now, Boise State, because they're higher ranked than the Big 12 champion right now in Colorado. So Boise State now gets that bye and the week off, and all of a sudden it's the Big 12 team, BYU, that's way down at 12. There's so much to watch over these next 2 weekends. It's going to be fascinating.
It's a great point, because the assumption is that it's going to be conference winner, Power 4 conference champion that's going to get that bye, but it just says it talks about the higher ranked team, right? And Boise State's higher ranked. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's the assumption. But it doesn't guarantee you a Power 4 champion.
4 highest ranked conference champions will be in the first 4, and then the other one will have a spot and will likely be 12. And if Kansas were to upset Colorado this weekend with Lance Leipold, CJ, now all of a sudden that Big 12 is probably going to be guaranteed the 12 spot. If Boise State wins out, that's what makes this really fun and compelling. I mean, as many debates and negativity that people will bring, there's as much compelling side of it that's positive for college football. As Rod said, TV ratings are going to be great. But as far as the Super Chats question, how do we rank the SEC right now? I mean, right now in the poll, it's Texas, it's Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama right there. Tennessee's the first team out. They're probably bumming tonight, but they've got some quality wins. They beat Alabama, and then they're 5 spots behind them. How do you guys rank and power rank the SEC as you see it and what you've seen with your eyeballs?
It's tough. Eye test has to account for something. I'll say this right now. I think the one team that I would not want to play when they're rolling on all cylinders is Ole Miss. I think that they've got it going in the trenches, especially on that defensive line. I mean, they sacked Georgia 9 times, and that was something Texas struggled to do, is get pressure consistently on the quarterback. But when they did, you saw where the passes were going. It was right into Texas's hands. The point being, when you can see Jackson Dart, when you give him time, similarly to Quinn Ewers, and allow him to let those wide receivers get open down the field, Lane Kiffin's a good enough offensive coordinator to draw up open schemes for his guys offensively. And when that defense is playing the way that's playing right now, it's tough to stop. I think Alabama's in that conversation, but Texas, I mean, right there with them, right? Texas only has one loss. It was to Georgia. Georgia bounced back with a big win against Tennessee, in which they went down 10-0 early, right? It was very easy for Georgia to roll over, kind of punt on the whole season, lose that game and say, you know what, we just didn't have it this year. We don't have the quarterback. We don't have the wide receivers. This isn't the team that we expected coming into the year. We don't have it. Instead, they end up winning by double digits, and they totally turned that game around in the second half and dominated. So it's tough. It's a complete logjam. I have Tennessee 5th out of the 5. I think it's all kind of who you like in the current matchups, but Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama to me are the top 3, and then you can debate whoever else right after that with Georgia, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and that extra group.
That's a good point. I mean, they're really talented. I mean, we thought coming into the season, most talented rosters were Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia. And then, what was Alabama going to look like with Kalen DeBoer? And, they've lived up to and been really, really good because Jalen Milroe's taken a big step forward. Their young defense has grown up really quick. But they did take the 2 losses to the Tennessee teams, right? Vanderbilt and Tennessee. But they're going to beat Oklahoma this weekend. They're going to turn around and beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl most likely. So it's going to be fun. Rod, who's the best team you've seen in the SEC? Is there one that stands out, or is it just kind of like the NFL where week to week you just don't know?
I think the SEC, I said this earlier, it's kind of a matchup league, right? It depends on the matchup that week. Like some teams just match up well with other teams. Even though, yes, I agree, there are some teams that have more talent, and I think overall you probably would rank them higher. But man, it's such a league where like Georgia's a bad matchup for Texas, and we all agree with this. Like, yeah, that's just a bad matchup for Texas. I don't know if I'd want Texas having to play Georgia again, even though you might have to go through them again in the college football playoff. But they just match up well with Texas. You just talked about Ole Miss, CJ. Ole Miss was a bad matchup for Georgia. Right? It's one of them kind of leagues where it feels like that this year. And not every league is like that. I don't feel like the Big Ten is like that as much. But I feel like the Big Ten is like, no, these teams are clearly better. Even though you've seen some close games, it's not like the SEC where I do feel like it's almost an any given Saturday kind of league. But I think Texas is the best team in the SEC. I do. I really do. But I also think Texas can be beat by, like I said, Georgia or a team that's a bad matchup for them in the SEC. I think that's kind of how it goes in the SEC on any given Saturday. Like you said, feels like the NFL with any given Sunday. Second behind them, I mean, and that's tough. I think Ole Miss is playing really good right now. I like the way that Ole Miss is playing. Hard to deny, when Georgia, like, at least when Carson Beck doesn't look like an absolute fustercluck, Georgia is Georgia, right? He just had this stretch where he was playing the worst football of any time I've ever seen him play. If he's out of that funk, hell, I wouldn't doubt if you can put Georgia in that conversation too, and Bama too. But like I said, I think all those teams on any given Saturday, based on the matchup, they can be taken down. And I include Texas in that, by the way, too.
Yeah. Well, it's a great debate, and it'll play out here over the next couple of weeks. And gosh, who can't wait to sit back and watch them? Hey, Rod, tell them about Carrot Concierge. It's Black Friday around the corner. Next week's Thanksgiving and holiday shopping in full swing. If you're thinking, man, what am I head scratching? What am I going to do here? Carrot Concierge would be a good choice, I believe.
Great choice. Thank you, E. If you're looking for the right gift for the woman in your life, make sure you check out the carrotconcierge.com. Jody Reynolds is a personal jeweler, and she is the Carrot Concierge. She has an office right there in Westlake, but Jody focuses on helping men purchase the special gift for that special person in your life. You can use the QR code. You'll see it pop up on your screen here momentarily. Use that QR code. You can see even more of her beautiful designs. Also visit her on Instagram or her website, thecarrotconcierge.com. Boom, there's that QR code I was talking about. Jody prides herself in providing personal service. She takes the extra steps to make sure your lady gets exactly what she wants. And because she doesn't have the overhead of a storefront, she often can get the highest quality items and inventory at the lowest possible prices. That is the secret sauce, if you will, of the Carrot Concierge, folks. So as much as 30% less than what you have to pay at a jewelry store. So check her out if you're looking for something special for birthdays or for anniversaries. You got the Christmas, obviously Christmas holidays coming right around the corner, the gift giving season. If you want to get that very special person, that very special gift, she has a variety of tennis bracelets, rings, necklaces, and more, all beautiful jewelry, all personalized for you and yours. Check out thecarrotconcierge.com. Visit her website or give her a call, or you can text her. Take care of that very special person in your life today with thecarrotconcierge.com. Thank you very much to Jody for being a sponsor of On Texas Football and of our Tuesday live stream.
Thank you, Rod. Good stuff. I just took the QR code. I got it. You know,
hey,
I got
man,
daughters, I got wife. I got
wise man.
I got
Wise man.
Gotta have it. Hey, before we get into some Kentucky talk and what the Wildcats are bringing to Austin, Sark's called it the most important game of the year. CJ, some recruiting news. I mean, I saw where Michael Fasusi is going to be at the Texas game. I saw Brett Venables complaining about it. He's got the old Mac Brown thing. You know, are we engaged or not? Like, what are we doing here? I mean, you're committed to us, but you're taking other trips to other places. Venables doesn't like it. But Fasusi's coming to the game and might be at the Texas A&M game too. What's your reporting on Michael Fasusi, the big offensive lineman?
Yeah, Jerry Hamilton broke the news earlier this week that Michael Fasusi, the 5-star offensive lineman out of Louisville, would be on campus this weekend for the Texas-Kentucky game. Why is that notable? Well, first off, he's committed to Oklahoma, right? And Aaron, you alluded to it. Brent Venables doesn't like it when his commits take visits elsewhere, especially on weekends when Oklahoma plays host to Alabama. So think about that for a little bit. He was originally expected to be in Norman. That's per a source close to the situation. Expected to be in Norman for the game against Alabama. And said, you know what? Let's go check out Texas and Austin for their game against Kentucky. Of course, Texas A&M is also expecting him on campus November 30th for the Texas game as well. So a lot going on in that recruitment right now. Also wanted to mention we recorded the recruiting breakdown earlier today, Jerry Hamilton and I. He mentioned a couple things. First off, Zayla Six will be taking his official visit to Texas this weekend. Why is that significant? Well, he reclassified from 26 to 25, and that means he's not going to be on the campus of a Florida, a Tennessee, and Auburn, whoever else was trying to recruit him away from the Texas Longhorns after he made his commitment earlier this cycle. Also, Zion Williams, keeping a close eye on him. I don't think it's completely out of the picture that he makes it to Austin, has been in communication with Kenny Baker recently. So as Texas continues to poke and prod at building this defensive line class for the current cycle, keep an eye on him as well. And then one other note, Blake Monroe and Jerry Hamilton did a great job breaking the news on a potential visitor for this weekend as well. I won't go into it too much, but if you want those details, go on over to ontexasfootball.com. Really, really big, important visitor on campus again, potentially this weekend that we're expecting for the Kentucky game on Saturday.
There you go. There it is. Remember, National Signing Day is December the 4th, so we're climbing up towards the day. On Texas Football, $39.95 for 1 year. On TexasFootball.com, get the whole year. Now is a good time to lock it in. We got the stretch run in the regular season of Texas football, the playoffs beyond that, and then National Signing Day, the portal, all that comes into December and beyond. It's nonstop here on the On Texas Football channel. Rod, what's your thought on commits and taking visits?
Well, I want to ask, actually, and I think we got a super chat about it, actually. I see it from Justin. What's the scuttlebutt on the Cade Phillips stuff? One of my favorite recruits, the DB. Actually, like I said, one of the few guys I actually got a chance to coach hands-on. I really like Cade Phillips. Turned out to be one of the best DBs in the country. Committed to LSU, but there's some scuttlebutt. Justin says, CJ, how do you feel about Cade Phillips coming to campus and with Florida taking 2 D tackles in the past week? Does that help with Charles? Give us the Cade Phillips stuff, because I've been hearing a lot of, like I said, a lot of word on the street stuff about what could be happening with him.
Yeah, I guess teasing that didn't go all too long, but Cade Phillips expected to be on campus this weekend. That's the recently bumped up 5-star cornerback committed to LSU, was previously committed to the Longhorns. LSU just fell to 6-4 on the season. You never know what that future for Brian Kelly might look like, it's kind of gotten louder out of Baton Rouge. They don't like losing a whole lot. So it's expected right now that he's on campus this weekend as well. I was trying to tease that one, Justin, but for $9.99, I guess we'll get the point out.
Yeah.
So good job on that one. And then with Florida taking 2 defensive tackles in the past week, it should help with Charles, but that's not going to stop Florida, Miami, even Florida State trying to keep a nose above water in this recruitment as well. It's the same way that Texas is still trying to recruit guys like a Michael Fasusi, a Dorian Brew, a Devin Sanchez. These are the big blue chip prospects in your backyard. You would be foolish to not do everything that you could to get them on the campus, or at least, pick up the phone to try and get them into your class. So that's kind of where we're at right now with Myron Charles. Folks, Florida schools are trying to do everything that they can to get the, Charles away from Texas, essentially. So we'll see with that. One other question: what's the word with Joseph Mbakchu from Champ Bailey? Listen, I liked where Texas sat with Joseph Mbakchu earlier this month. I think right now that you're seeing Auburn try to pursue other big prospects as well on the defensive line. That's the big kind of competitor in my eyes as well. Florida, obviously, he decommitted. I don't see them right now as a big threat. I think it's Auburn, maybe a Georgia, but I like where Texas sits right now for Joseph Mbakchu.
Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, Myron Charles, big-time player, and the Longhorns are going to recruit to the tape, as you and Jerry talk about all the time, CJ. Hey, one of the things Jerry's talked about to me on the On Texas watch-along when we're watching the game is everybody's noticed that Tia Savea hasn't played a lot of football. Are they planning to redshirt him? Is that kind of the plan? Because he's been, maybe Sadir Mitchell's come along and they know they're going to be thin there with, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and Lole and all these guys. Bill Norton running out of years. Is Tia Savea in the cards to come back next year potentially?
Yeah, I think so. It's not for certain. Sarkisian certainly hasn't come out and said, pretty bluntly that they're going to redshirt Tia Savea. But reading the tea leaves, watching film, just watching the game on Saturday, right? You don't see him. And that was expected to be one of the big key pieces in the middle of that defensive line coming into the year, right? We all watched the Oklahoma game. We all saw what he was able to do at Arizona in that bowl game. He was a disruptive force at times, creating pressure on the quarterback for one of the 20 interceptions that Jackson Arnold threw in that game. Point being, you haven't seen him in this game or in this season so far. And I think that says 2 things. Looking ahead to 2025, you're going to need to replace a lot of bodies. It's very similar to what Texas needed to do this year, right? And that goes to my second point. You're going to need a guy next year that's familiar with the system to step up, to replace the Alfred Collins, the Vernon Broughton, the Bill Norton, the 3 guys that are expected to depart after this year. Jermaine Lole in that conversation as well. If Savea is going to be one of the older statesmen in the room, I think that you would take that trade for a year off this year, essentially get a red shirt, get your body right again, and then come in as kind of the older statesman, a guy expected to lead the charge on the interior next year, maybe next to a Sadir Mitchell, Alex January, Jeray Bledsoe, Aaron Bryant. They got bodies. It's all about finding the experience and the veteranship. Savea right now kind of fits that mold more so than what we would see this year in my eyes.
Rod, think about that. The depth, the ability to have depth enough to play the long game with a guy that a bunch of programs around you would love to have. You know what I mean? That's a pretty good place to be if you're Texas.
Yeah, no, I agree with this. I think Texas is doing a good job. You should have a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy with certain positions. And I think D tackle is one of them. There should be a short-term strategy and then a long-term strategy. Texas this year did a great job bringing in guys via the transfer portal for that, but there should also be a long-term strategy about developing guys. And Texas has done a good job. Got to give Kenny Baker some credit. I don't know if we've given him enough credit this season.
Yep.
The way that the defensive line is played, and apparently he came in as a pass rush specialist, and the pass rushing, I think overall the pass rushing impact and prowess of the defensive line has definitely improved. And I think a lot of those, the guys that we're seeing now, they are developing in terms of long-term strategy, right? They've been in the program for a while. Alfred Collins been in the program for a while, and they're starting to develop a pipeline from a Ojimo and a Colburn to a Sweat and a Murphy, and now Alfred Collins definitely going to keep that going, and so is Broughton. Looks like those guys have worked themselves. Dane Brugler said the other day, and we brought it up actually because Matthew found the tweet that he got him as a second-round pick. He's got him as a second-round pick already. So, I mean, if you're a second-round pick, hey, all you got to do is a little bit of freaky testing at the combine and some more impact plays in big games, and they'll be talking about you as a first-round pick potentially. So that's how much his draft stock's improved. So they got a pipeline going at D tackle right now. NFL scouts look at Texas for that. And so you can use that in recruiting for long-term strategy. And then maybe, like you said, like Surveyor's a guy you can kind of keep in the pipeline to help you bridge the gap between the two. I got a question, though, for you as well, CJ, about going back to Kate Phillips, if you don't mind. Was there an issue about the position that he was being offered at either school from Texas or LSU? Was that a concern?
Originally, yes. And that's what allowed LSU to kind of swoop in and say, hey, you know what? We got a spot for you in this class. You know, when Texas had him, it was one of those big kind of questions whether or not he was going to be a safety, whether or not his body would allow him to move to the backside, or would he just be a cornerback through and through. He wanted to play corner, and I think that's what LSU sold him on. Texas had him more as a defensive back, a safety, a guy that maybe played a little bit of nickel as well. But right now it's, hey, if you want to be a part of this class, we're going to find a spot for you. Get to campus, and we'll figure it out from there. You kind of heard that in a number of different recruitments as well. Michael Terry's the one that comes to mind on the offense side of the ball. We don't know where we want you. We just know that we want you.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out whenever, if you do get to campus, this is where the path will go.
That was my pitch on 6th Street to a lot of the ladies in my prime, CJ. I don't know where I want you. I just want you.
Great. Rod, tell about Hargrove Roofing and their partnership on Tuesdays and here on the On Texas Football Channel. Great people, great Longhorn fans and connections, and you know who's on your roof, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you got any questions about your roof or concerns about it, you need to reach out to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. They have offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and, of course, the great state of Texas. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Auburn, also lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, who comes on with CJ and I and Coach Shipley on the winning drive, courtesy of our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there, as burnt orange as this shirt I got on right here. So you can check them out today. Also, they offer a free roof inspection, free 99, folks. That's right. Best price you're going to get. So reach out to them today at 512-645-3202, or you can reach out to them online at hardgroveroofing.com. Know who's on your roof with our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. Think you very much for being a part of the On Texas Football family and for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream.
Let me tell you, somebody knows those roof inspections can save your tail. I mean, you have all these hailstorms. You look up, everything looks good, but you don't know until you climb up there and see what's going on. And I
don't want to climb up there, but I don't want to do it.
No, me either. No, me either. And see, you kind of look, and you're like, okay, it all looks good. Well, no, you want someone to get up there and have a little detailed inspection of your roof. Hey guys, Matthew, I sent him this tweet. Here's Jim Nagy talking about Alfred Collins. How about that? We love seeing prospects put it all together. That's exactly what Alfred Collins is doing right now. Two areas where the Senior Bowl has seen the biggest improvements this year from Collins are his overall awareness and every down effort, both shown here on the they put the video out of him punching out the fumble there late against Arkansas. I said Collins' ex-teammate Tavondre Sweat helped himself immensely in Mobile last year. We're certain Alfred Collins will too. So that's a guy in CJ that always has had first-round traits, right? I mean, he looks like long and hands and butt and the whole bit. I mean, the guy just looks the part of a NFL defensive lineman. He's 320 pounds, but he looks like he could play end or interior if he needed to. Yeah. Good to see him, the light come on. And, to Rod's point about the pipeline, that's 3 straight years where, Keandre Coburn and Moro Ojimo played their best football at the end. Tavondre Sweat, as Jim Nagy points out. Jim Nagy, by the way, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, former NFL scout for 20 years. Longhorns could have double-digit, guys invited to that game. But speak to what they're doing up front. I mean, these guys, it's becoming the place to come and get developed to come, to the Senior Bowl and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'll share a quick story on Alfred Collins because I saw him. I covered him in high school. I was at Bastrop High I don't know, once a week, basically, whenever he was deciding between Texas and Baylor is what it really came down to. Oklahoma was in the mix as well. But I was up there pretty often. And so I grew a pretty strong relationship with Alfred whenever he was deciding. And then when he went to the Army All-American game down in San Antonio, I remember sitting there talking to him in the middle of one of the padded practices. He's going up against other elite offensive linemen in the class. And it wasn't a pretty day for Alfred. I think he would admit that as well. And I remember looking at him, I was saying, how's it going? You having fun out here? And he looked at me and goes, no, I'm getting whooped. I'm like, what's the deal? And he goes, listen, I just got to learn. I got to learn some technique. I got to learn something, because I think whenever you're Alfred Collins and you're 6'5", and I think at the time he was around 260, 270 in high school. So he's still the biggest guy on the field. And, Bastrop, no disrespect to that area, that district, but at 6'5", 270, moving like the way that he does on the interior defensive line, you're not seeing many bodies that are comparable in size to what Alfred brought to the table on the defensive line. He was a long, lengthy guy that had great athleticism. That was the big attraction to him coming out of high school. But when he started facing guys of similar talent at that age, he was saying, you know what, man, I got to get in the lab. I got to get work, and I got to learn some techniques, some pass rushing moves, because it's not going my way right now. And I think that's what was a little bit so frustrating with Alfred early in his career, because you see the one-handed interception against Colorado in the bowl game. You see some really impressive plays that really only he could do because of his size, his length, and his athleticism. And you're thinking, why isn't this guy on the field? Why isn't he maximizing to his potential? And it's all about that consistency. It's all about adding to his bag of tricks, which I just talked about, the pass rushing moves, the block evasion, finding ways to use your hands and get some separation from offensive linemen. And what we saw on Saturday with a 12-yard sack on Taylon Green, where he catches him by the ankles as he's trying to evade, that's the length, that's the athleticism. What we saw with him tracking down that screen, that jailbreak screen coming across with the big hand, that felt like a go-go gadget arm reaching across, punching that ball out, and it's because of how athletic he is. You didn't see that early in his career, because I don't know if he knew where the ball would be on a play like that. But to his credit, and to Kenny Baker's credit, he's developed to a level of football that we've not seen from Alfred Collins his entire career. And it couldn't have come at a better time with no Tavondre Sweat, no Byron Murphy. You're still playing at a level that warrants all SEC accolades at the end of the year. And shoot, if he's playing into a second-round grade right now, what else do you have to say right now if you're Kenny Baker to any of these recruits saying, you know what? The previous staff had they had 4 years with this guy. And I come in right away, make him a day 2 pick. I got this. That's Kenny Baker.
Boom. Yeah, boom. Great stuff, CJ. That was good.
That's a great story, man. Everybody roots for him. That 5-1-2 crew, as I call it, man, they're making plays, because that was Alfred Collins punching it out, Michael Taft jumping on top of it for the big fumble recovery, and the Longhorns ran out the clock from there. That was huge in that Arkansas game. And Rod, you played it, man. It's people, we talk about with Quinn and Arch, and it's hard. It's a hard game. You got to get better and better and better to be as good as these guys are. When they get to this point where they're this good and they're winning, conference awards and national award finalists, that's hard. That's hard, man. There's a lot of work that's gone into being that good. There's a lot of good players out there.
Yeah, and I think that's what is helping Texas, is that a lot of these guys who are playing their best football, as CJ mentioned, they've been in the system a while.
Continuity.
Right? Jadae's been in the system a while. So has Alfred Collins, Barron Sorrell, and I think they're intimately acquainted with the system. They know the system well, like the back of their hand. So everything is muscle memory now. But also the developmental aspect. There's no question about it. Texas can sell development. And now, multiple years of it. Now, like, oh no, we can develop. we can do it, guys we inherit, but we're definitely gonna be able to do it with guys that we recruit. So I think that's, to me, the biggest change. There's a lot of change happening. NIL, transfer portal. It's all these changes in college football are helping Texas. They're not hurting the brand right now. But the Texas coaches and their ability to develop the talent, that was ultimately what was missing at Texas in the last 15 years. We all know it. That was talent on the 40 acres. We saw it. There was enough talent there where you didn't have to be mediocre. All right. I'm not saying you would have been winning championships at the championships, but Texas was mediocre and pedestrian with high-level blue chip talent, and that was unacceptable Sark and his crew came in and started developing that talent. And now you're getting the best talent and developing that talent. That's a scary proposition for the rest of college football.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember when Garrett Wilson was coming out of Lake Travis, he basically said it. And he said, yeah, I'm not going there. I've seen too many good players get there and not turn into anything. I'm not going there.
Yep.
And we saw what happened with Tom Herman this week, by the way. Tom Herman fired his defensive coordinator, and then they fired him and rehired the defensive coordinator that he fired. Has there ever been a moment?
I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that, Aaron, where
I haven't.
The fired defensive coordinator comes back, is rehired by the interim, and then makes his announcement that he's back, essentially, with a video of him and a graphic that says, "I'm back," in Mini Men by 50 Cent playing. I've never seen anything like that before.
Look, I don't know, knowing Tom and how Coach Herman was, I'm assuming there was a groundswell for maybe this defensive coach to replace Tom. And Tom was, the word was Herman was already looking for a job as a Power 4 offensive coordinator and got rid of it. It is Game of Thrones stuff. Get rid of your enemy because he's about to take my job. Good for Florida Atlantic, by the way, for doubling back and bringing that dude back in. I think that's awesome. But I wanted to play this for our On Texas Football Tuesday live stream audience here before we get to a little bit of Kentucky talk and wrap things up. But it was your tweet, CJ, with Jahdae Barron, to Rod's point about continuity. Listen to this. Here's Jahdae Barron, who's playing as good as any defensive player in the country, certainly defensive back, talking about giving Pete Kwiatkowski all the credit for the plays he's making, that this is the continuity, that PK knows him, he knows PK, and he's got a pick and a sack and tackles for loss and all the plays. And here's humble Jahdae giving credit to Pete Kwiatkowski.
Big was that? I mean, it's just the trust level that the guys have for me and the coaches, I always say, Coach PK, he's a smart guy. Every play I made, I went over there and told him thank you for calling it, whatever. PK, he's a genius, so he just keeps putting me in position to benefit on a positive way for myself and for the team. So I just want to thank the defensive staff for that.
There you go. There you go, Rod.
Yeah.
Defensive genius. And every play I made, he put me there to make that play. That's, as a player, that trust between you and your coach. I mean, you had it with Coach Aquina and whoever, Coach Reese. I mean, that's humongous for a football player.
Yeah, I mean, coaches are ultimately just teachers, right? I mean, your classroom is a little bit different, in a different situation, but ultimately you got to be a teacher. And I think defensively, it's more important than offense, in my opinion. I think, defensive coordinators, because defensively, there's only so much schematic advantage you can get. Defense is all about just kind of Jimmys and Joes, right? Offensively, you can get an offense that can play above the level of talent you have on offense. Mike Leach proved it with the air raid. You can do that with a scheme. It's hard to do that with a defensive scheme. It's tougher to do that with defense. You need players. And teaching those players the game, you almost have to be professorial in the way you teach the game. And I always thought your best defensive coordinators, your best defensive coaches, they're the best teachers. They're really great teachers. Your best offensive coordinators and offensive minds, I think it's more about innovation, experimentation, creativity. There's a lot thrown in the mix there. But I think defense, if you can simplify it and teach it, that's kind of what Coach Aquina taught me. That's the key to being a great defensive mind. Because honestly, the 3 high, we keep talking about the 3 high, right? 3 high. The 3 high was probably your best and most revolutionary defensive innovation in 20, 30 years defensively? Because we don't see a lot of that on defense. You just don't see a lot of it. It ain't a lot. It's the same. It's been the same thing for decades. Offensively, there's something new that pops up every damn 4 or 5 years offensively. It's our RPO here. We're going to do package plays now. We're going to do this. We're going to zone read option. Like every other year, someone's like, there's something new offensively they're doing. I didn't think about that. Because they're constantly innovating. Because to be a great offensive mind, innovation, creativity, experimentation. To be a great defensive mind, you better know how to teach. You know how to teach the system, know how to teach the game. And Coach Aquina taught me the game. Like I couldn't even do this job right now if not for Coach Aquina. I didn't know the game from a student standpoint, being a student of it, until I learned under Coach Aquina. And I think that's what today's parents. So I treat Coach Aquina like the way, or at least I admire Coach Aquina the way he admires PK. That it opened my mind. I was enlightened to a new version of the game. And I actually start to see it in a new light and see different levels and dimensions of the game because of how Coach Akina taught it to me. And I'm forever grateful. I wouldn't have been even closer to the player I was without it.
That is such a great conversation. You guys are killing it tonight. Let me mention, we'll get into some Kentucky talk real quick and get into that. But, the point you just made, Rod, about innovation and where goes Sam Pittman before the game last week. Some people took it as a slight, but he said, Texas is pretty simple on defense. They don't do much, but they just line up and say, we're better than you and we can stop you. That's really what it was. And then some people said, well, were you slighting them? He goes, no. They're just, we're going to line up and whoop your butt. That's just, that's their scheme, But you got to have good players and well-taught players, to Rod's point, to do that. Let me tell you about Mark Saunders and his team over at All-State. And when you put your head on the pillow tonight, as I always say, and you have to ask yourself, are all of your things covered? We accumulate things, toys sometimes, but houses, and we talked about roofs, and gosh, you got to have all of that stuff covered. Houses, other houses, rental houses, vacation houses, cars and boats and motorcycles and RVs and ATVs. Are they all covered? Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need. Put it under one umbrella, put it under one plan. And Mark has been doing this 35 years in the Austin Round Rock area, and he's got you. You'll put your head on the pillow every night with his 35 years of experience, feeling like, yep, I'm in good hands. I'm good. My stuff is covered. If something unfortunate happens, I got Mark, and he's going to take care of me in that case. Plus, you can talk some Texas football with him. He's a Texas alum, loves the Longhorns, love the On Texas Football channel. So all you have to do is call him tomorrow. If you at any point when you're in your sleep think, man, I need to get some stuff covered here. I'm not sure about all that. Let me talk to Mark. 218-8571. That's 512-218-8571. Ask yourself again, are you in good hands? More than 3.5 decades of experience, Mark Saunders will make sure that you are, with All-State and Mark Saunders, our final partner here on the On Texas Football live stream. Real quick, guys, senior night or senior day, Kentucky. Rod, you've told me before, I've heard a lot of players talk about how kind of difficult that senior day can be. It's emotional. You get into your alter ego mode, and then there's your mom and you're crying, and then you got to go back to being in the alter ego mode where your mom probably doesn't like you very much. It's those days where you can kind of lose focus if you're not careful.
Yeah, and it is. It's just very unorthodox. It's very strange. You're not really used to seeing, mom and dad on the field, and cousins and little nieces on the field, and mama's crying and she's really proud of you and happy. So it is. It's very strange. I heard today talking about it too. I think every player goes through it, and it's weird. But it shouldn't be for this team that much of a distraction because, first of all, Kentucky, in my opinion, they're struggling offensively. They're struggling, I think, as an offense. So I like Kentucky's defense. I think Kentucky's defense actually can make some plays. They got really good players, NFL players, I think, at every level of that defense. But offensively, it's going to be we just talked about how good the defense is. It's going to be a tough road for them against the Texas defense on the road. I'd be shocked if they're able to make a lot of plays against the Texas defense. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but is that they played their best games, even though they're a bad team. They played their best games against the ranked opponents on their schedule, or the best opponents on their schedule. So I'm expecting them to have a good game plan and for them to give Texas all that they possibly can give as a team. So I expect them to have a competitive game plan going forward. We'll see how Texas bounces back offensively in this game versus Kentucky, which I'm sure they're going to run the 3 high if it's in the repertoire, and everybody's got it in their repertoire, by the way, at this point. Even Texas runs a version of the 3 high when they break out their nasty dime and then NASCAR dime. So I think they'll run it, but I have faith that Sark has the solutions ready to go and won't be surprised by it if he sees it in this game.
Hey, CJ, what have you seen from Kentucky on your film watch? They want to play a low-scoring game, right? They want to control the game, get into the fourth quarter, and drag you into the mosh pit and get after you. They did it to Georgia early, almost won. They beat Ole Miss on the road. They they can, as Rod said, they rise up for these best teams. Mark Stoops has been there a long time.
Yeah, what's really interesting, it might not show up whenever you watch the film, but if you know the personnel with Kentucky, they have 3 really good wide receivers. And you look at their offense, and you're like, well, you don't really ever get to see them in action a whole lot. But listen, Barian Brown's one of the fastest players in the country. He was a guy that was rumored to go into the portal last year, and everybody in the country, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, all of them would have gone after Barian Brown. They go out, they add Jamori Macklin, a guy from North Texas who had 1,000 yards a year ago. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, they got 2 really good wide receivers to throw the ball to. Well, their number 1 wide receiver isn't either of them. It's actually Dane Key with 640 yards or something like that, I think. So that's really interesting to me. The question is, will they give Brock Vandagriff time? Will Brock Vandagriff be able to get them the ball? Will Brock Vandagriff even be the guy that they rely on to throw at all on Saturday? Because they've not had success in the air really all season. And so that's going to be interesting is, can the Texas pass rush get home? Because we've seen that at times this year where I think that pass rush, might have covered up a little bit of some open wide receivers at times, just like coverage has made up for the lack of a pass rush. So that's something I think will be maybe an under the radar back and forth, is the Texas secondary versus what might be a pretty talented Kentucky receivers corps. So it'll be interesting. But other than that, you spoke about it defensively. All 3 levels, they have a guy that you need to be aware of where they're at on the field. Maxwell Harrison at cornerback, Deion Walker up front, Diomos Johnson in the middle. They got guys. They got NFL talent. It's all about, can they piece together a complementary game plan? That's been their issue all year. And Texas, again, defensively, should be able to rely on that defense to get off the field, create short fields, and build as a result.
Brock Vandagriff sounds like a soap opera star. I know that, but he's the Georgia transfer, CJ? Did he come in from Georgia? Yeah. Yep. Brock Vandagriff. On Days of Our Lives, you know what I'm saying? But good stuff. All right, guys, it's going to be a fun week. It's going to be senior week.
Do we have a super chat that we didn't get to?
Let's get to them. Yeah, I want to run through as many as we can.
That is Aloha Traveler. Thank you, Matthew, for that one. Worried about the O-line going into next year, Arch's first year, having to go to OSU and Athens with a green O-line. Is kind of scary. How many portal players does Texas add this year, and what positions? Thank you for the super chat, Aloha Traveler. We appreciate that. CJ, what about the O-line? Because the O-line's losing. Well, we don't
Majors Connor for sure.
At least 3,
and maybe
right?
Banks and Williams. So
Banks will leave. I'm kind of on the fence with Williams. I think that there will be enough NFL interest to at least pry him from school. But what does the NIL package look like for Texas? I think that's something that's going to be worth asking, especially when you look at it. How does he perform against Texas A&M? Because Georgia wasn't his prettiest game. You go on the road to Michigan, he had 3 false starts. If you play against Texas A&M and it's much of the same, what can you rely on for NFL scouts to say, yeah, that's warranted of a first or second round pick? I think that's one of the big question marks. I would expect at this point DJ Cannell to come back. You have Cole Hudson, who plays about 20 snaps per game. Nato Umeozulu's in the mix. Trevor Goosby's right now that 3rd offensive tackle, as well as Brandon Baker. So if Cam Williams does the part, you have a 5-star tackle in the waiting as a redshirt freshman ready to take the reins. So, yes, it is going to be a new offensive line. There's going to be a lot of new, fresh faces. Fortunately for Texas, I think you don't need to go out to the portal to add someone with this group of guys still on the roster. And beyond that, you're going to have a quarterback that can run and evade sacks. So, that's
Arch Manning.
Okay. Real quick, though, what positions are you going to be looking for in the portal? Don't we think wide receiver definitely next season?
Yep. Wide receiver, I think defensive line. We talked about it. CSFA, whether he redshirts or not, you have guys ready to go. But if you can go out and add a Jermaine Lole or a Bill Norton, you have to do it. Wide receiver, I think you absolutely go out and add another, just in the sense that that's never a position that should be short on bodies at the University of Texas, especially when Arch Manning's throwing you the rock. You're telling me if a guy, hypothetically, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but guys like Andrew Armstrong go into the portal every year.
Ooh.
You're telling me that you wouldn't want that in the offense if you're Steve Sarkisian?
That's it.
Yeah. Again, I think Andrew Armstrong's going to the NFL.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
there are guys like him elsewhere across the country that are saying, you know what, maybe I want to go catch passes from Arch Manning, and Texas losing what is expected to be a number of wide receivers again this year. I think you should go get one.
Nice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, and again, they're going to lose most of their receiver core, the core of it. The defensive backs too. I mean, Jade's done. Andrew Makuba's come here to go on to the NFL. I mean, Manny Muhammad will be back, and you feel good about that. But Michael Taft is going to be wrapping it up. I mean, these are all really core players for Texas. Derek Williams will come back from his injury. But yes, I mean that's roster building from the ground up and from the top back down, and that's why you keep chasing a Michael Fasusi at Louisville, right? You keep rolling in there, trying to keep the 5-star tackles coming in. All right, guys, good stuff. Thank you for the super chat. That is awesome, Rod and CJ. Enjoy your week. Obviously, next week it'll be Thanksgiving week, and we'll be here on a Tuesday getting ready for turkey dinner. And man, if Texas handles Auburn, or A&M handles Auburn, Texas handles Kentucky, it's hard to quantify the magnitude of that Texas A&M game, the emotion, but also what it mean for the, it really could be the single biggest game between those two programs of all time.
Yep.
Because it's going to mean so much, and they hate each other. So that's good. All right, guys. Thank you, Cisco. Hey, you guys have a great night. Everybody get some good sleep. Let's do this again tomorrow at 8 with coffee and football, and back with you next Tuesday, of course. Thank you to Matthew. Thank you to Mark Saunders and the team at Allstate. Thank you to the Carrot Concierge. Thank you to our new sponsor at DG Construction, for sure, a new partner there, and Hargrove Roofing. Thanks to all those people. Guys, it's been fun. We'll do it again next week.
Welcome.